You're listening to Dude Check This Out, Episode 1! Hello, Internet, and welcome to Dude Check This Out. This is the podcast where me and my best friend Kevin Land.
Hey, that's me.
So there's a lot of media out there, movies, games, comics, music, what have you. And even like between like large groups of people, there's stuff that some people just won't ever know about. And this is a show where just between the two of us who like we've known each other since we were like 5 years old.
Yeah, like 2 or so. Like we've known each other forever. Like easily for the entirety of time.
And we have lots of similar interests and stuff that we've recommended to each other over the years, but there's still like I made a Google Doc of like stuff that you had not yet experienced and I had not shown you. And it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
So this is a show where every week we are going to recommend each other.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Yes.
Got your back. Don't worry.
Thank you. We're going to recommend each other a certain type of media, whether that be, again, movies, games, whatever.
Just stuff. Whatever we think is cool.
Yeah. And we're going to have that person check it out, and then we're going to talk about it.
Yep.
Real simple.
That's it.
Not that hard.
No. It's very interesting how like even though like we've known each other forever and like we've been doing the same thing forever. Like we were in Boy Scouts together, we didn't go to school together, we were in the same church. Like that second one isn't something somewhere. We were in the church. Like we've known each other forever, and there's like it's really cool that there's this huge amount of things that we both really like, but like independently. Yeah. I like all this stuff independently and you like all this stuff independently. And so there's just so much out there that it's really cool and interesting that we get to like kind of share it now.
Yeah. And just like always have new stuff to check out.
Yeah, which is nice.
Also, my name's Noah Stewart. I just realized I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Noah Stewart.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Land.
Kevin Land, there we go. Hosts of the show.
Yeah, I am a 6'7" Puerto Rican man. I am extremely fit. I have curly, like very big curly locks of dark brown hair that fall to the middle of my back.
I live on Smith Street, 77014.
Yep. In Maryland.
Yes, in Maryland.
In Maryland. All of this is true.
The brewery's actually just like in your backyard, right?
Yeah. No, my dad, he brews.
I've always known that. Oh, this is great. 100% factual information.
Exactly.
We're just spewing out to the internet.
To all 3 people listening to this first episode,
yes.
Which I personally told to listen to the episode.
Immediately famous.
Yep, I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Anyways, I don't know, do you just want to jump into it?
Yeah, I mean, okay. Is there anything like specific, like anything going on in your life that I don't know about at the moment? I mean, we just had dinner together.
Yeah, we just came back from dinner.
It was delicious.
Dinner with my wonderful girlfriend.
Delicious Mexican food.
Yeah, Mexican food.
Yeah, it is fun that I've been third wheeling you and Jordan for like 3 years now, 4 years.
We've been dating for 9 years.
Yeah, but like there were like in high school and stuff, like there were a lot of people around.
Yeah.
But, like when I went to college, I would come back and it'd just be the 3 of us hanging out.
Yeah.
So I've been third wheel. Like I feel like I'm a professional third wheeler by now.
Yeah, but there's.
Can I at least be the big wheel?
Yeah. Oh yes. Oh yeah. If it were a big wheel like you.
Oh, like the big
when
like
you're like
in
5
the
years
90s,
old.
yeah.
It's like the tricycle, except the giant big wheel at the front. You'd be that wheel.
Heck yeah.
You'd be.
I am a large Puerto Rican man, so.
Okay. Where did that come from?
You know. The truth, reality.
Oh yes, of course, the 100% true facts are spewing out to the internet. Anyways, with the best segue I've ever performed, today we are talking about a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is created by Katsuhiro Otomo, released in 1988, based on the legendary manga of the same name. One of the best animated movies ever produced. I would say probably one of the best sci-fi movies ever produced, animation or live action. Today we are talking about Akira.
Yeah. And so Noah had seen Akira a long time ago, and I had never seen it.
Well, it was like I saw Akira for the first time maybe like 2 years ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I had never seen it, and so he told me about it, and so I am on the receiving end of, dude, check this out.
Yeah.
And I checked it out. It was pretty great.
Okay, first of all, spoiler warning. We are going to be talking at length about the movie, and much like anything else on this podcast. But to give a kind of setting, for those of you who have not seen Akira, it is a sci-fi movie set in 2019, Neo Tokyo.
Like 2 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. So the setup is that in 1988, a psychic attack on like a nuclear bomb level completely wipes out Tokyo and sets off World War III. And then the movie kind of, jump cuts to 2019, where Neo Tokyo has been established, kind of a like dripping neon kind of like
super city.
Yeah, like super future grungy city.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Very cyberpunk, cyberpunk is awesome.
Yeah, and before we keep going, if you haven't seen it, pause this right now and go see it. It's like 2 hours long, and we'll be here when you get back because this is a podcast.
If you like anime, if you like movies, like Akira is a must watch.
Yeah, even if you don't know what anime is, but you probably do, but you should just watch Akira. It's really great.
Yeah.
And we're about to spoil everything about it.
But so yeah, 2019 Tokyo, it's much like our current present. It's about a year away from they're setting up for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, but they're making the arena for the Olympics in the giant crater that the psychic attack took place on,
which is fine.
And the movie follows has like two main characters, but the one I say you would follow the most, and I guess would be the protagonist, is Kaneda.
Yeah.
Who is a leader of a future Bosozoku motorcycle gang. Who the Bosozoku in Japan is a real thing. They're basically like in the movie, they're like motorcycle punks. They are guys who, like, really young, like high school kids, don't really have a lot going on besides, just running around causing a ruckus, damaging property and stuff like that. And in Japan, it's actually like the Bosozoku are kind of like, they're like the little league of the Yakuza. Like
really?
Yeah, the Yakuza.
So they're like Yakuza in training?
Yeah, so the Yakuza, for those who don't know, is like the mafia in Japan.
Yeah.
The like organized crime families and stuff like that. And the Bosozoku are like they kind of go around committing petty crimes, but because they're kind of in that world, they'll sometimes get connected with people in the Yakuza.
Yeah, I guess like picked up by them and stuff like that, if they do well enough or impress people.
Yeah, so that like people are afraid of the Bosozoku because they cause a ruckus and stuff like that, but they're not like as deathly afraid of them as the Yakuza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yakuza people are crazy. They're so scary.
Like, people don't have tattoos in Japan, like, because they're afraid of like if people see you have a tattoo in Japan, they immediately think like, oh, are you associated with the Yakuza?
Yeah.
Because if so, like, I'm running away.
That's crazy. Japan's such a nice place. It's so safe there.
They have like one of the lowest crime rates.
Yeah.
Right?
Yakuza's just real good about keeping it on the DL.
Yeah. I'd like to go to Japan.
That would be awesome. We should go.
Yeah. Especially Neo Japan, where where the movie takes place.
It's crazy.
So the creator said that he kind of took Blade Runner, the movie Blade Runner, as a lot of big influence for like the look of his Neo Tokyo for Akira. Which that's a movie we should do.
I haven't seen it.
On a later, I thought you hadn't, but it's one of my favorites.
I haven't seen it.
Blade Runner is, that'll be a later episode.
Yeah, there we go.
But
isn't it always raining?
In what?
In Blade
Runner? Yeah, is
that like a thing?
Yeah, it's like the global warming of that world. It was just so bad that like it's just like pollution rain is just like always raining on like cities and stuff, and it's even worse in the book. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? But it's Blade Runner is real good. Just cool. But
different movie.
Yeah, different movie. So in Akira, follows Kaneda, leader of this Bosozoku group. They're the Capsules.
Yeah, sure. He does have a capsule on the back of his pink jacket. That's really rad.
Super awesome jacket. And that motorcycle.
That
motorcycle is the
cool.
coolest
Yeah, I have
thing.
a bunch of stuff to talk about on that motorcycle, but not specifically.
Yeah, so it follows Kaneda and also his friend, his best friend Tetsuo.
Yeah.
Who early in the movie gets he gets captured by the clowns, right? An opposing
group. So the clowns are this like evil guys. They're the bad bikers, and so like Tetsuo like chases two by himself. Like everyone stops because there's like this fire or whatever, and he chases them down by himself. And so he gets them, and he gets one of them, but when he does, he gets surprised by number 26.
Right.
And and number 26 blows up his bike, and he like skids off, and then the military comes in and takes him and number 26. I forget what number 26. I just know that by the numbers. I don't know what his name is. His name is like
the
little dude.
The psychic kids. Yeah.
They each have numbers.
Yeah. So there's like the little psychic children that are like from the government.
Yeah.
But they look really old.
Yeah.
They look like tiny, like they're kids. Like they identify as kids, but they have like weird like gross wrinkly skin
and
on
like
their face and stuff.
Or blue or green or whatever.
That's very strange. But
yeah, it's super cool.
So Tetsuo like gets taken by the government and like experiments done on him.
Yeah,
right.
Because he awakens. So like in the movie, these like little kids have it, and Tetsuo gets it. It's like this power, and so he gets this like power. And Akira used to have the power, and then like gave it up or something like that. And so he awakens the power, and so he starts to use it. So they start running experiments on his brain and his head because he awakens the power in him.
Okay.
That little kids have.
Yeah. So he has this power. He comes back like at a certain point, like back to the Bosozoku group.
Yeah, he like immediately escapes. I think, and they like let him escape because they're like watching him and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then he, what was it? The moment that like he gets like abducted again. Or
so like he.
I haven't seen in a hot minute. I just kind of like looked up some clips on YouTube last night.
So Tetsuo like gets like he runs his bike into the little kid, and the little kid blows up his bike, number 26. And then he gets abducted and experimented on, and immediately escapes and goes and meets up with his girlfriend. I forgot her Kay, I think is her name. No,
Kai.
Kai is like
Kai's the one.
Kaneda. Is Kaneda's girlfriend.
Right. Yeah.
And his other girlfriend. He goes and meets up with her, and then she gets beat up.
Right. Yeah.
Because they like try to run off with Kaneda's bike, and then when she gets beat up, he beats up the other guy, and then like he starts to feel his powers again. And it was so gross. It was so cool. And then he gets abducted again, and then he begins to escape, and like the little kids try to kill him, because like the girl like can see the future.
Right.
And so she starts to say like, oh yeah, like Tetsuo is gonna wake up Akira, and if that happens, like, oh, we can't let that happen. It's like everyone's gonna die. Like the world, like Neo Tokyo is gonna explode. Like a lot of people are gonna die. And the Colonel, who we haven't talked about yet, who is like maybe my favorite character.
He's cool. Yeah.
He's so cool. He gets. So then Tetsuo like starts going through the facility, and like that's when his powers really start to awaken. He starts like mind blowing people up and stuff. Yeah. Like when he walks out of his cell for the first time, and like all the people are around him, and he just like blows them into bits and goo on the wall. It's crazy. Gosh. And then he starts going through, and then he like escapes and goes and wakes up Akira and turns to the giant flesh baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the summary. So what'd you think?
I thought it was awesome. So I've seen it twice recently.
Okay.
So I saw it once, I guess like 2 weeks ago or something when we were talking about this, and then I watched it yesterday in preparing for tonight. And I took kind of some notes on it stuff, and it was amazing. So like, the animation for one is like so good, and like they do like I've watched a lot of anime, like a lot of anime. And normally, like anime, they can pump out episodes so fast because the budget, when they focus on their faces, their mouths don't move very much.
Yeah.
And like they like compared to like American animation, it's a lot kind of simplified and like not nearly as dynamic and that kind of stuff, where they do a lot of like still shots or whatever. But they like did so much. They show so much emotion through their faces and how their mouths move and that kind of stuff. The first time I watched it in an English dub. And the second time I watched it in a subbed.
Oh, nice.
So I watched it like in the Japanese.
Yeah.
And so like the mouths moving with the thing made it was like super cool.
Yeah.
And so like the animation was like super awesome and like way like, because like if you watch anime, so if you watch like any like Miyazaki movies and that kind of stuff, it's kind of similar. But they did like in those two, you can really tell like they put a ton of time in the faces and the emotion that they show. I thought that was really cool and like very standout from normal anime.
If I could grind you up and spit out the seeds, sport.
I could ride it. Yeah. Don't make me laugh. Maybe when you downed your first clown.
Yeah. So, interesting thing about the animation is so beautiful. But at the time, so it was like the 80s, right? Like the movie came out in 1980.
Yeah.
Like when the like, you know, World War III event happens. And so the movie at the time, it's compressed or comprised of 160,000 like frames. Or like pictures for the frames. So it just has tons of frames of animation, which was like unheard of at the time, to have like that much work put into like just the sheer like motion of like every one of these 24 frames in, you know, like per second has just so much motion in the animation. And it cost $10 million,
Jeez.
which is 1980s money, which is a lot. And it was at the time the most expensive animated movie ever made. I believe Spirited Away topped it a couple years later, or like, you know, like 10 or so years.
Yeah,
I
10 years later. When I think it was like in the late 90s.
Spirited Away, it was late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
But Spirited Away, I think, was like 11.8 million or something. But yeah, like Akira, really impressive for its time, even today.
It looks really good.
Just the lights, the motion in the characters, like the motorcycle scenes
the
where they're
motorcycle
driving at night, and it's like Ridge Racer style, like just like the like blurring lines.
Yeah, I was
of the
definitely
brakes.
gonna bring that up. Like that was super cool. And when Kei and Tetsuo are fighting, when Kei is like possessed by the little kids.
Yeah.
Or like they like wake up her power, and so she's like having a super fight with Tetsuo like on Akira's like big ice ball or whatever. So like, so he like wakes up Akira and he's like bringing it up, and they're like fighting on the thing. And then like when Seoul, like the satellite thing, like that big light comes down, and they're like looking up and they see all the lights on them. I thought how they did with the lights and the contrast between how they did like the lighting and the darkness of like when like they're showing like how bad the city has gotten, because the city, there's like riots in the streets and stuff going on because the government is super corrupt, and like comparing that to when like the motorcycle lights, or I thought it was really cool how they had a lot of like neon signs and that kind of stuff, and like they showed like how the city has like multiple levels, and like the top level is like casinos looking. It looks like really like big, like rich entertainment stuff. And then like on the ground level is just like straight slums. And so I thought it was a very cool contrast, and like how they showed like the hedonistic tendencies of Neo Tokyo. And they talk about it one time when like I've seen it recently, so I just have all this fresh in my mind. Like there's a scientist dude and there's the colonel, and the colonel is awesome. I'll talk about him in a minute. But the scientist dude and the colonel are like going up and down an elevator, and he's talking about like, oh, like you want to, and the scientist is talking to, I guess the doctor or whatever is talking to the colonel. It's like, oh, you want to save the city. He's like, oh, like, you know, what we're doing here with these kids and that kind of stuff is a big deal, and we're going to like help humanity grow and evolve.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to save this city. It's like, it is just a broken down hedonistic mess. of people, like, where they just only care about themselves and don't care about anybody else. And how, like, with, like, almost no words, they do it, like, twice. That him, and then when the resistance guy, Ryu, I think his name is talking with that guy with the big buck teeth.
Yeah.
And they're, like, walking, and it's, like, so gross, like, that they see, like, the two people making out, and that guy's groping that girl. And they're just,
like in the bar, right?
Yeah. And so they, like, just, like, with very few scenes and, like, almost no words, they just talk about, like, they show the exact culture of, like, how grotesque and, like, self-centered.
Know what kind of place Neo Tokyo is. And just the background art in the... Oh, gosh. It just... Like, all the trash everywhere.
Yeah.
But, like, all the... Just, like... All the walls with, like, graffiti and stuff. Like, the backgrounds give Neo Tokyo so much character.
Yeah, exactly.
And so intricate and detailed.
Yeah, without even, like, really talking about too much. So some of the characters that I really liked, I thought that the Colonel is awesome. So the Colonel would just, like, get stuff done. Like, he is just a man on a mission to get things done. And it's, like, he's so cool. And, like, when at the end, so he goes to, like, the big meeting, right? And he's sitting around with all, like, the politicians.
Yeah.
And it's, like, very obvious that he's the only one that doesn't kind of have his head in the sand, or, like, head up in the clouds, or, like, is the only one with his feet on the street, like, actually doing this stuff and learning about it. And then, like, he goes and eventually just, like, throws a coup, and is just like, hey, I control the military. All the military people respect me because I'm down here in the trenches with them all the time. And you have told me that, like, I'm under arrest. Well, actually, you're all under arrest. Like, and then, like, he's like, the people are like, hey, like, the Supreme Justice Council or whatever says, like, you're under arrest. And he's like, oh, no, I think I'm in charge now.
I'm actually in charge here.
Yeah, and just,
you're
like,
under arrest.
And then everyone goes, yeah, okay, sure. And, like,
that's actually correct.
Yeah, like, he is so cool. And, like, the whole movie, he's always doing what's best, or at least what he think is best for people. Because
he doesn't actually know what's good. He's just like, hey, you know, these people are bad, go get them. Like, he's just doing his job.
Yeah, and, like, so, like, 3 kids, like, 3 super babies, or, like, whatever they are.
Yeah. 3 psychic grandpas.
Yeah, it's like psychic grandpa babies. He is, like, has been nurturing them and caring for them forever, or for however long they've been tested on or whatever.
Yeah.
And they kind of, you know, and, like, it shows at the end when, like, Tetsuo is inside of Akira, kind of. Yeah. It shows, like, the past of Akira and how, like, he unlocked the power and, like, submitted himself to testing. And then they gave those other 3 kids powers and submitted them to testing. So they kind of, you know, abducted children and forced them into being test subjects. Sure, okay, fine. But, like, he cares about them and cared for them and, like, got that girl, like, that big, like, toy castle place and all the toys and stuff, and does really care about them. And so I feel like if there's ever, like, an actual protagonist, it's definitely Kaneda, and he's also, like, the audience perspective.
Yeah.
For sure, because Kaneda doesn't know what's going on and never really finds out, but it's just like, oh, my friend there has superpowers now and he's going kind of crazy. I guess I'm going to shoot him with this laser gun. But
we're gonna yell each other's names
all the time. But I think that, like, the general or the colonel is probably the actual protagonist, in the sense that he's doing what he thinks is right and is best for the people.
That's an interesting take.
And, like, because he, like, he hates the corrupt government. And,
and
like, because the people are rebelling against the corrupt government and the tax reforms or whatever. They kind of say that twice. But that's not important. What's important is the colonel's like, I'm going to get this done, because if we don't, we're going to have another disaster that we had before that started World War III. Like, that's going to happen again unless someone does something.
And we're about to have the Olympics. It's going to be embarrassing in front of the rest of the world.
Yeah, and he's like, you guys don't see it. You guys are too caught up in your politics. Like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And like, if you're not going to do something about it, I'm going to take it into my own hands and I'm going to do something about it.
Neo Tokyo is going to explode.
Yes, and so, like, he's, like, doing good for the people, even if the people don't see it, even if the government doesn't see it. He's the guy that's like, no, like, this is bad. And, like, the scientist is, like, a little too much caught up in the science of, like, hey, like, this is an amazing technology, or, like, hey, like, this is how people evolve, this power.
Is the next step of evolution.
Yeah. And the guy's like, I don't care. He's like, that's not going to help the people. Like, if this is too dangerous and we can't control it, we need to shut it down, because we can't have what happened last time happen again.
Right.
And so the guy seems mean and he's really gruff, and he's like, oh, yeah, science is bad, or no, yeah, politics is bad. But he's thinking about the people the whole time. So I think he's actually the protagonist, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And that's why I love him so much. Even though, like, Kaneda is, like, the guy that's actually the protagonist and actually kind of, like, the main character or whatever. But I think that, like, if you take a step back and look at the whole story, the Colonel is, like, rad. He's super cool.
Okay. Well, along those same lines as far as, like, your take on the story, what did you think of the ending?
So, like, in the end, like, the giant flesh baby ending, or, like...
Well, there's that. We'll get to that, but I guess, like, what I want to touch on is specifically, like, at the very end, where, like, there's, like, the big flash of light, and then it just kind of, like, dissipates into white, and then it cuts the credits.
Well, yeah, it goes to that little ball, and
yeah.
then, like, Kaneda, like, takes it. So, like, at the end, I guess it's kind of saying, like... So, like, I guess to kind of talk about this, the power... there was that one scene I talked to you about earlier, that, like, they're in the jail. It's Kaneda and Kay are in jail, and Kay gets possessed by the girl, girl person, and she, like, talks about, like, oh, you know, like, there are amoebas, and then, like, when amoebas evolved, they know, like, they evolved into, like, lizards, and lizards evolved into monkeys, and we evolved from monkeys. So, like, what would happen, like, there has to be some sort of energy that allows us to create buildings and nukes and rockets, and, like, there has to be some sort of energy that we have as evolved beings in our core, in whatever, that, like, traces back all the way through time, and, like, we have that in, like, an amoeba doesn't, because amoebas don't build buildings, they don't make rockets or whatever. And so, like, maybe this traces back all the way to the beginning of time, or even before that, there was this, like, energy or whatever, and it has, like, continued to evolve and, like, grow larger. And so she's like, well, what if an amoeba had the same super special energy evolution thing of a human? And she's like, well, all amoebas know how to do is eat everything around them. So, like, what if they had, like, this secret evolution energy that we have that allows us to build buildings, build nukes, understand all this stuff? Like, we have so much more, and that has to be quantified with some magic number or magic thing. And what if that energy that lets us do that was transmitted into an amoeba? Like, what would that amoeba do to its amoeba society?
Yeah.
And so, like, that is what's
become an amoeba god.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's happening here with Tetsuo, is, like, he has unlocked or obtained or been bestowed this energy or this power of a higher being that we don't understand and can't control yet. And that's why they're studying it and all that stuff. So Akira, I think, like, he unlocked
was the
that
first. Yeah.
And then he submitted himself to all sorts of testing and whatever he could.
Because he was also, like, the 28th test subject in, like, their, like, you know, round of testing trying to find this energy.
Yeah.
It says on his pod it's, like, number 28.
Yeah, you're right. But he was kind of the guy.
Yeah, he was the breakthrough.
Yeah, and so I think what happened is he kind of took the next step beyond, like, humanity. Yeah. So, like, Akira was like, all right, cool, like, I have this power and I'm learning to control it. And I don't know why only kids can control the power and adults can't, because they make a big deal, like, oh, like, big people shouldn't use the power or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. But, like, I think it's cool that, like, Akira, I think, like, figured it out and was like, oh, okay, like, I'll submit myself to testing. And then they say, like, oh, well, we don't know yet, so we're gonna, like, freeze him down into little bitty parts, and then we're gonna save his parts for future generations. And that's what Akira is. Spoilers. Akira's not alive anymore. He's just, like, that parts in, like, the little freezer thing.
he's like a bunch of organs in, like, a bunch of tubes.
Yeah.
In the big freezer thing. So
I think, like, when he exploded, like, he came back. I think Akira, maybe he came back physically, but I think, like, he attained a higher level of being. And in that higher level of being, he, like, was like, okay, like, he no longer walked Earth as Earth did. And he no longer interacted with this universe as we do as humans. He was some sort of higher level, I don't want to say God, but, like, some sort of higher level of being that we don't, like, as humans, we can't understand. Because he evolved past it. I was doing air quotes. Evolved past it. I realize this is not a visual medium. Evolved past it. And so he came back. And then he, like, as he was on this, in there, he was like, okay, I'm going to, like, flex my muscles or do my power or do whatever to take this giant flesh baby that's going crazy. That's kind of like a halfway in between step, something like that, where, like, he had the power, but his power was, like, going crazy, and, like, Tetsuo couldn't control it. and he's like, well, he was like kind of the finished product of what Tetsuo would eventually become.
Yeah.
And so he like took Tetsuo away and like took him into whatever him and all the other like old baby people like took all of them into the next step dimension. And that's why like at the end there's all this white space and he's like, oh, I am Tetsuo, and it kind of cuts to credits. So I think like it also leaves it open a little bit, because at the end they say like, oh, like it has already begun, like we can't do anything yet, we can't pass on, or we can't do it quite yet, but it's already begun. So because of K or something, it's kind of like setting up for a sequel or setting up for whatever, maybe like more into the manga.
Now you're king of the mountain, aren't you? But it's all garbage. Kaneda! Okay, let's settle this once and for all!
Well, that's actually the interesting thing. So, like, yeah, like that all sounds right, but the reason, so that ending's weird, right?
Yeah, it's definitely weird.
It's very weird. It feels rushed to a certain extent.
Definitely the first time I watched it, I felt that way, but the second time I watched it, I was paying way more attention to all, like, the details about, like, the lore and the world that they've built, and less just being like, wow, this looks really cool. Oh, geez, a giant flesh dude, like, what's going on? And, like, when I actually sat down and really, like, watched it a second time, I got way more out of it.
Okay, so there's a reason why that's strange, the ending is just like so weird.
Yeah.
Is because the movie actually only really covers like half of the manga. The manga is like 6 oversized volumes of like 2,000 something pages worth of story.
Okay.
And the movie only covers like half of it. So like I think like at a certain point in the manga, like Akira actually like wakes up, like he like attains a body, and then like it's like Akira's empire versus like Tetsuo, and they have like this big battle and stuff like that. But like I've only read like the first volume of the manga, but that's like what I've heard about like so the manga actually like has time to tell the story, so that's kind of why the movie feels so rushed like that, because they're trying to take all of the story and smush it into one like 2 hour long movie.
And I definitely feel like going like all the other characters, like the guy with the buck teeth, the colonel, and like his relationships with the government and with the doctor scientist dude, the biker gangs, and the resistance. So there's that whole resistance at the beginning of the movie of like, you know, Kei and Ryu and those kind of people are fighting against the corrupt government.
Yeah.
And they're like doing all of that. I think like the movie does do an admirable job of like introducing these characters and having them enough screen time to be like, hey, like these are side characters, they have their own plots, they have their own personalities, they have their own thing going on outside of Tetsuo and Kaneda. And I really wish I had more time to see and hang out with those characters.
Yeah, like in the manga, like at least from like the first volume that I've read, like almost immediately like Kaneda is like hanging out like with this girl from the resistance, and like it like you really feel like he's going to at some point join the resistance to fight, you know, like the government and everything.
Yeah.
But
and like I thought it was super cool. And so like I wish I had more time to spend with them. And I feel like some of the relationships felt a little rushed. Like, why does Tetsuo absolutely hate Kaneda? Like, oh yeah, he's kind of a jerk a little bit, but not enough to like throw him into this like air and like kill him, or like kill his friends, and like how he hates Kaneda for like always treating him like a little kid or whatever. And
even though they're supposed to be friends,
yeah,
like, they're supposed to be like childhood friends.
Yeah, and maybe the powers make him go a little crazy, sure. But I felt like them and how like Kaneda and Kei, like at first she's like blowing him like, don't talk to me, and then they were really close friends, and then they weren't, and so like I feel a lot of the relationships were kind of rushed because they didn't have a lot of time. And I think the movie did a good job about like, hey, this is cool and this is kind of important, but that's not the story we're trying to tell in this 2 hour movie.
Yeah.
And so they focused on what they needed to focus on, which I thought made the movie really good, but it also made me want to spend more time with these characters and see how, like, if they had a whole TV series or a whole anime or a whole manga, which they did, how they would have told the stories of these characters and how they really would have developed. And I feel like I would have gotten the movie would have meant a whole lot more to me if they had like done what the Avengers did, and each character had their own story, and then you could spend a bunch of time with them, and then they like came to this movie that they made where I already knew all the relationships so well and intimately that like when they had those things, it made a lot more sense. But since they only had 2 hours, I think they did a great job of focusing on what they needed to. But I just wish that like I could have hung out with the characters more because they were all super cool.
Yeah, definitely. So, what were like some of like your like favorite scenes?
Oh, jeez, my favorite. So that movie was brutal. I mean, like just crazy, like
violent.
Well, like just like kind of gross.
Yeah,
and kind of violent. So like at the beginning when like Tetsuo like hits that guy, he was riding his bike, has his pipe, and like crushes that guy's face.
Yeah,
they don't show it, but I'm like, holy crap! Like that bike's probably going like let's say 40 miles an hour or whatever, and he just smacks that guy with that pipe. Like,
the pipe that has like all the like
screws and stuff,
like screws and bolts coming out of it. Yeah,
like holy crap! Like that was awesome. Or when
so but that motorcycle scene, like the slide, you know what I'm talking about? Like after he hits the clown off his bike, and it just like he does like the sideways slide on the motorcycle looking at the camera.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome, and that's also been adapted into a bunch of other shows.
Oh, really?
Like that like there's like a scene in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think like the 2000s series where like Donatello or like I think Mikey is on a motorcycle and he does the slide, or like in Batman the Animated Series, Robin's on a motorcycle and he does the slide. Like I think if you look hard enough on YouTube, there's a montage of like every instance in animation that they have ripped off the Akira motorcycle slide,
and it looked great. It was super cool. Yeah. So there was that, like when Kay like is running away from the guys and shoots that guy in the face.
Yeah.
And like blows a hole in his face. And he's like bleeding everywhere. Or like
lots of detail.
Yeah, or like when there's the Tetsuo is in his bed and the little like old babies come to kill him, and they like have like the big teddy bear.
So I hated that.
Yeah, it was gross. And there was like
scary.
Spitting milk at him. It was milk.
Like it was crying milk and
yes. That's what I mean. It was like brutal and gross and like oh my gosh, what else was there? The first time he gets his powers, right after that scene, they come to kill him, and so he's like. His door's blown open, so people come to like get him, like, hey, you need to go back in your room, and he like flexes his mind powers and blows them into mush on the walls.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh, like it was crazy. And obviously like the giant flesh baby is gross.
That's the elephant in the room of this movie is at the end when Tetsuo becomes a giant flesh baby.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on it and not really talked about it, but there at the end, Tetsuo like has his like super evolution powers, and they start to go out of control and like take over his body. Like the power he has begins to consume him, and he turns into this like super gross, like huge, like constantly like gooey, like throwing flesh,
like very muscly and stuff.
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of like little like tentacle things in him and all sorts of stuff, and like becomes this giant baby. It's really gross.
Yeah.
Oh, and when like Tetsuo's girlfriend gets beat up. Like that's like this is a totally different type of brutal. Like that's super gross and like body gore, disgusting. And then like it shows this girl like getting her like shirt ripped off and like just beat up. Yeah. And then like it shows like so Tetsuo then like so Kaneda comes and saves him, and then Tetsuo's like beating up the other kid, and so when she walks forward, it has her face all beaten and bruised.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap! Like that is like really messed up. Like this little, she's probably in like.
They're all like
7th grade or 9th grade, and it shows her like face all beat up from this like punk that like beat her.
Yeah.
So like there's lots of moments where I was like, this movie is like not for kids.
It doesn't pull punches.
No, it's crazy. So I thought like it was super brutal. I thought it was awesome. Like those were moments where I was like, man, like they did not like hold anything back. They wanted to tell a story and like how brutal the world had gotten, and how like the power, like it is not something to kind of mess around with, and I guess they like gross giant baby people. I don't know, but I thought
how they do in Japan.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. Oh, if we're just what was your question again? Like moments I liked in the movie?
Yeah,
when Tetsuo goes into space, it was awesome. He goes into space.
Yeah,
he just flies into space. No big deal.
It's fine.
Yeah,
hanging out in space. Me and my satellite friend
that he blows up.
Yeah.
So. Tetsuo goes. So they have the satellites, the Soul or whatever. Go Austin, and like they like drop. So like shooting him with lasers, and he like gets shot and gets his arm shot off. Yeah. From the laser cannon, and so then he flies into space. And I really liked how they didn't have any sound in space. I thought like along with being how it should be done, not like, you know, Star Wars space where there's blaster fire everywhere. But I thought it also like made it really intense, like
very
that
atmospheric.
moment. Yes, I thought it was really cool. So and he just blows up a satellite in space, which is rad. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, no, yeah. I guess that's another thing you're talking about, like the like audio cues and stuff like that. The soundtrack is so good. So like usually with like cyberpunk stuff, it's usually like really like deep like electronic synths and stuff like that. But just like how authentically Japan the soundtrack of this movie makes it feel, with just like the kind of like tribal drums and just like
the vocal stuff,
kind of like a Ghost in the Shell kind of like choral kind of thing. All the like kind of like traditional Japanese instrumentation of the whole like that kind of classical music, just like it's something you wouldn't expect from that setting, but it makes it work so well. And
I thought it was super cool just about music cues. Now whenever the old babies and Tetsuo, the psychic grandpas, I like that better, Tetsuo and Akira all use their powers, they have a certain sound that goes with them. I don't know if you noticed that. I watched it twice.
It was like the high pitched like
kind of like each one had their own like music and rhythm, and so like the first guy that like runs away is a lot of like brum 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 brum, and like when he's like that giant like teddy bear thing and is making that noise with it, and every time he uses his powers it makes that noise. And like the guy that turns into the car, the guy that's like sitting in like he looks like super old with like comb over hair and stuff. Yeah,
and he's in like the Frieza from Dragon Ball Z chair the whole time. Yeah.
He has his own sound. And then when Tetsuo uses his, it's like the big choral like boo, like that, like the really like deep, dark, like kind of Darth Vader-esque soundtrack of like, oh, this is the big bad guy and he's here to mess us up. He has that. And then Akira, when he uses his power, is like a kid playing like a toy piano. It sounds like that.
Yeah.
And so and every time Akira shows up and uses his power, or like they talking about Akira, they play that very lighthearted sounding thing.
It's really creepy.
Yeah, but I thought it was super cool that like Akira sounds, it is creepy because everything about the power is creepy. But Akira sounds like very light and kind of happy, and Tetsuo is super heavy and dark.
Yeah.
And so like that contrast of like Akira, at least in the movie, maybe not in the manga, has like figured it out. He's got it. He's on his next plane of existence or doing whatever. And he's going to come back and kind of save the day, more or less, by destroying everybody except for Kaneda, which is bad, and take Tetsuo away. And Tetsuo, who is like the powers kind of controlling him, is this super dark.
He doesn't understand it.
Yeah. And so like how the music about when they use their powers correlates to who they are as characters, I thought was awesome. And I didn't get that, and like this is something I didn't get it the first time. The first time I just was like in awe of how cool the movie was, and the second time going back and looking for this kind of stuff, I thought was super cool. That like they in the production was like, it's not just like, oh, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy, or whatever. And Tetsuo is definitely the bad guy. Like he's super evil by the end of it. Like when he kills, like I thought he was the good guy at first. Because I thought, oh, you know, like the government is the bad guy and he's killing the government, which is fine, and Akira's the bad guy. But then when he goes and kills the bartender guy and then like murders his friend or his old friend, and then like Kaneda like drives his bike into the wall. He's like, I'm gonna send your bike to you, man. That's when like the moment I know like, okay, like Tetsuo is evil. He's the bad guy.
The power has gone to his head. He's kind of like taking his like the grief he's had in his life out on everyone with this new power that he has.
Yeah, and I mean it is his fault. Like it is like not like it is very American of me to say like, oh, it's his fault for like, you know, not taking control of his own life and picking him up by his bootstraps and getting a better life or whatever. But like just how gross the city has become, and the hand that was dealt to him, that he was left off at an orphanage with nothing to his name, that his parents like left him behind, and kind of like that grief of my life has been so terrible, nothing good has ever happened to me, and like now, oh, I have this power now, well, I'm gonna make something good for myself, and then turn into a giant flesh baby. But like but definitely like he's kind of the antagonist. I would say he is the villain, which is very interesting. How like, oh, I think that the Colonel is the good guy who starts off as the villain that takes Tetsuo away and all that stuff. And you know, the Resistance, who also feels like the good guys are fighting against them, but when like the General or the Colonel is really the good guy and Tetsuo is really the bad guy for everybody, and then Akira comes and blows everybody up, which was what like the Colonel was trying to prevent from happening, because it's, you know, good for the story, good for everyone, because Tetsuo is now taken away, not going super giant flesh baby on everybody. But like, I do think that's very cool of how they set all that up. That the Colonel was the good guy the whole time, and that Tetsuo is the bad guy. And I guess Kaneda's really the good guy just because he's like kind of that lovable oaf that kind of like runs around and does stuff.
Yeah,
the whole movie. I think Kaneda's really cool too. But
he's like the main character, Jack Burton. He's the Jack Burton of Akira. Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China. Have you seen Big Trouble in Little China?
I also have not seen Big Trouble in Little China.
That's another episode.
Yeah, we're finding out more and more.
Yeah, but anyways, you like the movie?
Yeah, Akira is
would
awesome.
Recommend?
Yes, highly recommend. Akira is great. It's so good. And I kind of went into a little more technical on stuff because I went and watched it a second time looking for kind of this kind of stuff. But like, there's all stuff that happens in the background that you don't really realize in your first watch through. And then like, it's also a movie that I would definitely say watch twice, watch 3 times, like go back. Like there is so much in there,
and it looks so good.
And it's so
you
fun.
won't mind watching it.
Yeah, like it's so good to watch.
times.
Like I say we should probably watch it.
Yeah.
Maybe not tonight, but
I'm down.
yeah, watch it again. And so I kind of point out all the stuff that I've seen through it, looking kind of at it with a more like analytical view.
Yeah.
So it's great. Watch Akira. Do it. It's great. Now, so next time I'm gonna give Noah something to look at and to check out, and he's gonna look at it. So next time we're gonna talk about the thing that I'm giving Noah. What I'm gonna give Noah to look at is Fez. So Fez is a video game. So we're gonna talk about it a little bit here, and then so if you want to follow along, check out Fez. It's like $10 on Steam or on like the Xbox Store. It's a great game. It is a video game, so Noah's already kind of looked at it a little bit, started to play it, just because 2 weeks is tough to play.
I've been like checking it out. You want a good lead time for video games.
Yeah.
Because like, even a short one is like 6 hours.
Yeah, which is tough to do because we're actually adults, I guess.
Yeah. I've got a job.
Yeah.
In school and things happening.
So, Fez is awesome. It's a great game. So Noah's going to look at this for next time, and we're going to go a little bit into it now, so you have a better idea, and so does Noah. So Fez is a puzzle adventure game, and it's awesome. The kind of like core mechanic of the game is you exist in a 3D world, but you interact with it in 2 dimensions. So it's like pixely, like pixel art kind of aesthetic, like indie. It feels very indie game.
It was one of the like big first indie games, but
yeah. And so like it's super cool that like you interact. There's like lots of puzzles, and all sorts of cool stuff. Like one puzzle that won't really give much away because it doesn't tell anything. It's like you'll have a room with 4 blocks in it, and it's like a 9x9 grid or a 3x3 grid. So like you kind of imagine there's like 9 squares and a 3x3. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So
maybe.
Like a 3x3 grid.
Yeah.
And so you need each.
Kevin just made a motion with his hands to make you understand what a 3x3 grid is.
Yeah. So like it's like it's like 9 squares and a 3x3 grid, and so you need to make each side look a certain way, but you can only interact with everything in 2D. So like if the blocks are set on top of each other, they might not be on a different view, but you can only interact with them in a 2D way. So it's like this big logic puzzle of, okay, well, like the blocks are literally in this 9x9 square if you had like an aerial view of them, but you can only interact with them in a 2D space, and you have to solve this puzzle and those kind of things.
It's pretty cool. From what I've played so far, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So my favorite part about the game is that the game has like this enormous. It's like kind of Metroidvania style for those who know what that is. So it's a lot of backtracking and adventure, like just roaming around. Get to a place and you're like, I don't know what to do here yet, or like I can't solve this puzzle yet. Like I'll come back later. And so like you have this big open world to explore, and there is this kind of underlying storyline in there, but it's very non-linear storytelling. That you just kind of figure out the story on your own pace, and when you kind of make the story what you want it to be, which is super super cool. And like you can like easily get lost in the world and in the story and in the puzzles for like a super long time. And the game is like really hard. Like you can kind of go through like the first run through pretty easy, but if you want to actually like 100% the game and figure out every puzzle, it's like nigh impossible. Like, it is so tough, which is super cool. And how, like, the internet, you know, came together and solved the puzzles and did the things because they're the internet. I don't know. I don't think you've probably gotten to any of those things yet. Have you found any artifacts?
I found the one, but yeah. But it's good. But I think, it's probably good for you.
Yeah. So, Fez is really great. It has a killer soundtrack. It definitely doesn't have a lot of stuff, like, extra. It just focuses on just the gameplay, like just what it's trying to do, and does it super well. So if you want to, and you should, check out Fez. It's like $10. Play it. It's great. It has a great style, and it has like a Miyazaki, like blue sky, really like fun and happy feel to it, but kind of like an Ico, like Isolation. I know you love Ico.
It's all like environmental puzzle stuff.
Yeah. It's super great. And so, like, the guy who created it has, like, all these, like, cool inspirations and, like, a old school, like, hey, the game's not going to really tell you what to do. You have to figure out what to do on your own, which is just super cool and awesome. So,
cool.
Fez.
Right. That's 2 weeks.
Yes.
Everybody. All right. Cool. Well, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, this is fun. Yeah. I hope that you like Fez. I know you will.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's really great.
What I've been playing, but cool. I guess that'll wrap it up for this week's episode, and we will see you next time on Dude Check It Out.
Check it out.
Check it out.
We're DJs.
We're rippity rap on this
what
last bye, dude.
See you later.